So to start, let me introduce our panelists. We will have Jeff Leake, who works here at Sierra-Olympic. He is our VP of Sales. And then we have Patrick Pongratz. He is the Director of Marketing over at LaserShot. And then we also have Matthew Breland. He works as the program manager there and is the virtual battle space operator. So without further ado, let me kind of pass it over to Jeff Leake.
Thanks, Matt. Appreciate it very much. Yeah, again, we're very pleased to have LaserShot, who is I've been associated with for over 10 years now, and providing infrared camera technology to them. So we wanted to learn a little bit more and focus on how they're using infrared cameras in the systems that that they offer. So without further ado, Patrick and Matthew, why don't you all both introduce yourself and tell us again a little bit about your responsibilities at LaserShot.
Sure. Hello, my name is Patrick Pongratz. I'm the Director of Marketing at LaserShot. I've been on the team since 2014.
And hello, everybody. My name is Matthew Breland. I've been at LaserShot since 2010. I started out basically being the resident virtual battle space expert, which was a big up and coming piece of software for us in the military simulation realm. But I've since moved into more of a project manager role. I'm just basically there to make sure everything gets completed on time.
All right. Well, thank you for the introduction. All right. So why don't you give us an overview of LaserShot and how did LaserShot get started?
Sure. Here's a video we like to share to introduce the company. It's an oldie but a goodie.
It's like a realistic virtual reality video game, but it's being used for some serious training on Fort Hood. News 10's Sam DeLeon shows us how VR simulators are also saving the Army a lot of money.
This is the virtual reality simulator on Fort Hood. It gives soldiers the opportunity to practice basic team building skills before they go onto a live fire range or on deployment, where there's little room for mistakes.
If the mistake is made here, the action is corrected, and then the soldier's taught and trained to make sure that he doesn't make that mistake again, then they're clearly less likely to make the same mistake once they go out and conduct actual training.
The simulators can also take soldiers on the road or through a raid.
This warrior skills trainer is help with overall readiness of a gun team. It really helps you build like team cohesion.
Definitely communication is one of the biggest things that I learned here. I always had trouble with communication myself, and coming in here and getting to a high-speed situation like that kind of helps me communicate with my battle buddies better.
The VR training is cost-effective. It can simulate almost any environment imaginable without the time or travel cost it would otherwise take.
They can do multiple iterations of either the same scenario or different scenario. We can easily switch them from a desert environment to an urban environment with the flick of a switch.
Training in a virtual world that gets them well prepared for real-life missions. On Fort Hood, Sam DeLeon, A3TX.
So that video is of our warrior skills trainer. It's one of our flagship systems at Fort Hood, Texas. And so just to yeah. So just to start off with the company's mission statement, LaserShot's mission is to equip the U.S. military, its allies, and peacekeeping forces worldwide with cutting-edge training technology proven to save lives, minimize liabilities, and maximize warfighter readiness to deploy, fight, and win on future battlefields. Since 1999, LaserShot's dedication and unique advantages have empowered the company to consistently offer the world's most powerful, user-friendly, adaptive, and cost-effective training solutions, which continue to be depended upon by both the world's elite fighting forces and high-profile, high-throughput academies. So this video here, you'll see some of the different systems that we offer, everything from military, law enforcement, competition shooting, hunters education, firearm safety, basically anything to do with marksmanship and use of force. LaserShot has two divisions. We have the simulation side of the company and the live fire range side of the company, known as SRT. And for those that are new to the concept of marksmanship simulations, here's a basic diagram to explain the concept. So the first element that we'll need is G.I. Joe. Next, we have a console. This is a very powerful gaming computer that has very specific software installed on it. Next, we have a projector. This projector and screen combo is going to be the video output for that console. And we have a camera. This camera can be a thermal imaging camera that's tracking live fire projectiles or tracking an infrared laser fired from a trading weapon. So when that weapon is fired, the XY coordinate of the impact on the screen gets picked up by the camera, which translates back to the console and registers a hit within the software. So that was a very basic ceiling installed system, but the concept extrapolates out to very powerful training platforms. Here we have our boat crew and gunnery simulator. This has a motion platform that simulates waves. They're training on virtual battle space, which has geospecific terrain programmed into it. So for instance, on this system, Matt can talk about this more, but the Coast Guard could train for a specific harbor.
Right. So we kind of went a really quick crash course from the basics of what our system is built off of, which is a computer that runs simulation software that was originally designed to pick up laser-based weapons, hence the name of our company, Lasershot Simulations. And we used infrared cameras to pick up those lasers. But then we decided to branch out a little and thought, well, if we can pick up a laser, why can't we pick up a live round? And we were able to do that with the introduction of thermal cameras. And so we basically replaced the screen from a canvas screen to a gum rubber screen with a bullet trap behind it. We replaced the camera from an infrared camera to a thermal camera. And the idea is you can run basically everything that you're seeing here, everything from the simple marksmanship systems up to these big crew surf systems. There's a live fire option there because you can replace these laser-based weapons with live fire weapons as long as you have the facility built around it. And we can just switch out the tracking technology, and all the software that we build and that we use is able to transfer straight over. So everything you're seeing here is laser-based, but in theory, with different weapons and with a different setup, you could do this live fire as well. And it's meant to be essentially modular and interchangeable.
Matt, does in all of these, does Lasershot provide everything that we've seen in the video from, in the boat example, for instance, all the actuators? Do you provide the weapons in addition to the screens and everything that is recording this information, or is it different than that?
So we provide everything as a turnkey system integrator. We don't produce everything ourselves in-house. So like the screens, for example, are something that we outsource to another company. And that motion platform, we don't actually make that motion platform, but we integrate it with our software solution. And all of the laser-based weapons you've been seeing, that's sort of our area of expertise. So those are all produced in-house by us. But when the customer makes an order from us, we're providing a complete solution. They get everything from us ultimately.
Okay. One of the things I really like when I go to trade shows and you guys are there, which is, I'm seeing this in the video right now, there's typically one of the longest lines in front of any booth in the show. You certainly make a hit there. Obviously, everything you're doing there is laser based, but it's really fascinating to see how people end up respond, to these systems when they get a chance to actually shoot on them.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We always joke about the long lines we get at trade shows. Everyone likes to shoot, and when you're inside, the simulation is a good way to do it.
Yeah.
One of the issues we have at trade shows is a lot of companies will be trying to get as many people in the booth as possible, and there's some days where we're trying to shuffle people out because the hallways are blocked and nobody can walk around, and there's some general in the back that wants to come see our systems to possibly adopt them as part of their training platform, and he's in the back of a huge crowd and we've got to move him forward. So trade shows are always a lot of fun.
Very good. Well, just to re-highlight, just tell us real quickly again, maybe an overview of the special type of customers that typically acquire laser shot systems. Maybe just touch back on that again.
Sure. So we, the military, both the U.S. military and its allies is our main customer. But, you know, a close second to that is law enforcement, including international law enforcement. We also have systems for hunters education, competition shooting, firearm safety, and some entertainment systems that are in places commonly known nowadays as country clubs. It's kind of like a country club, but for shooting, and they'll have a virtual system like this one right here. This is our curve screen simulator. So they'll have a 5-stand system, you know, indoors within their facility, or a multi-screen competition shooting course like this one. It's really beneficial for people who are first-time shooters to do it virtually before they go out on a live fire range.
Hey, can I interject with a quick question? I'm just curious, what's the level of accuracy with these systems compared to, you know, say real live targets?
So it depends on what you mean by accuracy there. As far as the accuracy of the cameras, both our infrared and thermal solutions are, we call it sub-pixel accurate, which is sort of a marketing term, but what it really means is that the accuracy of the detection of the laser exceeds the number of pixels on the screen. So it's more discrete than that. So it's very accurate. It's so accurate you wouldn't be able to notice any kind of inaccuracy from the laser readout. And then as far as the accuracy of how the virtual bullet will react inside the simulation, we have ballistics software basically coded into all of our particularly long range type marksmanship simulations, so that when that round is detected on the training surface and it creates a virtual bullet, that bullet will also act realistically.
Okay. One other thing, Matt, when we're doing these simulations, if you fire the laser, you fire a live round basically, and you strike the object or the target in an arm versus the torso versus the leg, do different things happen when that happens? And does that replicate itself on the screen?
Yes, absolutely. So the software, we have various different software titles, but any kind of software title that is trying to emulate a hit on a live target, like an enemy combatant, will take into account hit zones where that target is hit. So a shot in the center mass will have a different effect as a shot in the leg. So like in virtual battle space, which is what we're looking at here, for example, if an enemy combatant gets shot in the leg, they might start limping, but they'll still be up and they still might be able to fire. So part of the training objective there would be, you know, have to shoot until the target or the threat is down.
Okay. All right. Thank you for explaining that. So why don't you tell us about the live fire systems and how do they work then, just to kind of maybe re-emphasize that portion of it.
So
yeah, absolutely.
Live fire systems are known as thermal shot. That's our trademark for it.
Okay.
And like we mentioned earlier, the camera that detects the XY coordinate hit, let's say an infrared laser, the console just needs that coordinate to register a hit within the software. So with thermal shot, we can use thermal imaging cameras, which detect a live fire round passing through a special rubber screen. And that thermal detection translates that coordinate back to the system. So everything you've seen so far, like Matt said earlier, could be live fire. Here's a video from a live fire shoot house where you can see some of the hits are registering, like your earlier question, if they got hit in the arm or where the character in the simulation got hit, would they react differently? And here you can see that they are. You see right there, that guy got hit in the side and he reacted that way. This software that you're looking at right now is called LVS. It's Laser Shot Virtual Shoot House.
How close can you actually be to the screens?
So you can actually get, depending on your setup, but especially in a shoot house setup like this, we utilize a technology called ultra-short throw projectors. And the idea is, unlike a traditional projector, which you kind of want to be pretty far away from your projection surface, these have a very short, what they call throw ratio. So you can get them within like a couple of feet or less of the screen, and they're mirrored such that they create a perfectly warped straight image. What that means is, particularly with like a ceiling mounting setup like you'd have in a shoot house like this, you can get almost right up to the screen before you would risk shadowing it, which allows for very dynamic entry practice like you're seeing here.
Right. I paused on this frame just to show how close this operator is to the screen.
Yeah.
Let's see. You can see how close they get up to it, and that's that ultra short throw. It's very important to be able to do that, obviously, because as you can see, they're stacking on the next door and things. You don't want to be registering hits within the software because they're too close to a wall or interrupting the image as they clear the room.
You know, many years ago, they used to use pop-up targets, wood targets and that sort of thing. Has this completely eliminated the need for doing that in these types of live fire shoot houses now?
I wouldn't say it's completely eliminated the need, and sometimes we've supplemented live fire shoot houses with wooden targets and physical targets in the middle of the room. And part of the advantage that traditional targets still have is you can put them anywhere in the room, not just on the walls. Yeah. So I would say, I mean, our general philosophy at Laser Shot is we're not trying to be a complete replacement for traditional forms of training, more like we're trying to augment it. With further capabilities.
So we have a question that came in. We will try to save some of them for at the end, but this one's relevant to what we were just talking about. The question is, are the thermal cameras also on short throw positions so the detectors are also not shadowed?
So depending on the lens that we're using on the camera, they can be, it might not be the same ratio as the projector per se, but we can get them quite close to the screen. And a lot of times what we'll do is we'll actually use 2 cameras per projector. And so what that allows us to do is each camera only has to look at 1/2 of the screen. So you're cutting the amount of screen space you need to look in half, and you can get it even closer. And so that's a way that we mitigate that problem. That's a great question.
Thank you.
So what is the importance or benefit of having a thermal imaging camera integrated into the system?
Well, without it, you would be able to do live fire, basically. That's what makes live fire possible. So live fire training is very important. Our virtual side, our virtual simulations are never, marketed as a replacement for live fire. It's a step before live fire. It's an augmentation to live fire. But every operator that uses a firearm as part of their, profession needs to have live fire training. So with thermal imaging cameras, we're able to train with real weapons, the same issued weapons that they're going to take out on a mission or take out on duty. And they're able to use much more powerful targetry. And that targetry, it's not just about training the operator or the shooter. That targetry is, because it's virtual, now it's data driven. So the big army can collect data on the the training the shooting capabilities, the first time goes, second time goes of entire divisions, and that helps them adjust their training doctrine accordingly. So without thermal imaging cameras, it would have to remain virtual.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. So do you see infrared cameras continuing to play a pretty big part of these live fire systems? And are there improvements that you see that can be made to the systems?
Absolutely. I mean, like as Patrick said, the thermal camera for us is the centerpiece of the live fire system. It makes the live fire system possible. And as the thermal camera technology improves, it just makes the accuracy that much better. And the ability to do more varied setups that much greater. But essentially, yes, I mean, this is, as long as live fire is important for training, which we don't see that ever changing, then yeah, the thermal camera will be important for us.
Yeah, very good. That's good. Adam, do we have any other questions?
Nothing that came in yet.
Okay. As far as better resolution, would that, if you had higher definition cameras, would you actually be able to create larger screens and more sophisticated scenes? Is that something that you envision happening with the systems?
Potentially, yes, absolutely. And with a higher resolution camera, even without going for a larger screen or a larger scene, even with the same screen, it's going to help mitigate any kind of thermal irregularities in certain training areas, things like that might make it so we have to do a little bit more calibration work. It helps make that process easier. And anything that can make the setup and the calibration easier for the end user is a win in our book. One of our core philosophies at LaserShot is to make our systems simple enough to operate that you don't need a full-time trained operator, that soldiers, airmen, sailors, etc., themselves can run these systems, even the live fire systems.
Yeah, it's quite an impressive list of various bases that is being listed there that you guys are doing the training for. Does the law enforcement significantly different in the types of scenes and things that happen in those?
So law enforcement, our main law enforcement software title is known as JTS. It's Judgmental Training Software. And law enforcement, let's see if I can, had a previous video that showed it. Law enforcement is, obviously their mission is much different than the military. So they do they often focus on what's called use of force. You might also know that as shoot or no shoot. Right here you're seeing our software JTS being used. So JTS is basically it's HD video. We film it either as part of our offering of the basic software suite. Comes with, I think we're over 1,000 scenarios right now, which is not only the largest scenario library on the market, but each scenario also has more branches. So here you have a scenario here where there's a hostage situation where they're shooting. This was filmed by our camera crew. And so, like I said, it's either offered as part of the 1,000 or so scenarios that we have as part of the JTS library, or we do custom content development with the customer. So if there's a police department at a certain university, we can travel to their location and film scenarios on location there. So the officers are actually training for, let's say, like an active shooter that's moving through the hallways of their actual place of duty. And that's much higher quality training. And that's just to mention, one aspect of custom training. The different customers have different unique training requirements. They have different unique missions, but law enforcement typically focuses on these judgmental scenarios. And that's part of, I know for many law enforcement departments and agencies, each officer has a required number of hours of use of force training that they need to go through monthly or annually. So it's a very important part of their training. It's not just marksmanship when it comes to our law enforcement customers.
Yeah, that's fascinating. So you do the filming of these all these various scenarios. LaserShot also does that?
Correct. Yeah, our content development department, they're a team of videographers. So not only do they go and film these scenarios, they also edit them, which is a rather detailed process because, like I mentioned before, it's not just the scenario itself. Each scenario, it's not just one outcome. The instructor has a choice of outcomes known as branches. So let's say the suspect pulls a wallet in this branch out of their pocket. The next branch, they pull out a gun. And then depending on what the officer does, the officer can deploy a firearm, the officer can deploy a taser. And based on all of those actions, that scenario goes down a different branch. So it's a very detailed process, and we're proud of our library that has, like I said, 1,000 or so scenarios and numerous branches per.
So how do you monitor the officer in these scenarios and have the software react to what the officer is doing? Are there cameras trained on the officer as well?
We can have cameras installed in the room for after action reviews, but the software is the interaction with the software is through the instructor's tablet, the instructor station. Like I mentioned, they can choose that if the character on screen pulls out a wallet versus a gun or something, they can choose that branch. And then also the interaction of the training device with the scenario itself, be it a simulated firearm or a taser.
Yeah, it's fascinating where you can have, like you said, all these different branches that can happen. The action and reaction is so important, and being able to see how the officers are going to react in those situations. So fascinating. Well, gentlemen, thank you very much for this kind of look into the laser shot virtual systems and the live fire systems, and how you're incorporating thermal imaging cameras into the live fire systems. All of the video that you've shared with us today has been extremely fascinating, and we very much appreciate the time that